We have Daniel back, and Daniel will help us break it down the vote which happened in the House of Commons yesterday.
Yes, yesterday was quite the embarrassment for Canadian politics, but such is par for the course for the last 10 years.
He explained the audience what the highlight of this vote was and what was actually passed in the House of Commons.
So the first thing is nothing is passed to say. This is a non-binding motion. So what was officially accomplished? Nothing. What does this mean for Canada? Officially nothing. What does it mean for Palestinians? Officially nothing. What does it mean for Israel? Officially double nothing. So what does this mean? No. But this is, let's say, a charade, a political charade orchestrated by the NDP. You could say to attack Israel. You could say, well, no, the real thing is this is sort of an Israel hate-off between the Liberals and the NDP to court the anti-Semite vote that is rising in Canada due to mass migration. It's probably, the hard politics of what's going on here. So you have the NDP, which is Canada's, social democrats, to the left of the Liberals traditionally, instigate a motion that, doesn't care about the hostages, doesn't mention Hamas, but is an Israel bad. This is all Israel's fault. Israel, we need to stop selling weapons to Israel. We don't, and as I've pointed out, we don't even sell weapons to the Canadian army. Okay. So ending arms sales to Israel from Canada, it's already over. We're not even selling arms to our own army. We have Ukraine asking for weapons. We don't have any more to give them. We gave them 6 defective tanks from the 80s or whatever, back when the war started. And, they're asking for artillery. Not artillery pieces, because they have more artillery pieces than they do artillery, but we can't send them artillery or make artillery because we just can't get our stuff together. So we're sending over things they don't need, are asking us not to send. This is the state of the Canadian military. So the Canadian military, the Canadian government can't even fund or equip the Canadian military. We're not equipping the Israelis with anything of significance. So that ended due to our own stupidity years ago before October 7th. So that's the part of Jagmeet Singh's little victory dance that doesn't really apply. The real purpose of this motion, though, is for the NDP to show that they can slap Israel, that they are different than the Liberals, that they will go after the true allies of Western civilization and, attempt to bring it down. And this is them courting the anti-Semite vote. Both the Liberals and NDP are deeply unpopular, but they do know that after a bit of years of conservative governance, the wandering moss of Canadian independence will come back to the Liberals or the left, as they always do. But the hardcore radical Islamists who really hate Jews, winning them over is a priority to these parties. And the best way to do that is to denigrate Israel publicly. So this will do that for the NDP. You had, Heather McPherson and Matthew Green sort of leading the charge here. Matthew Green throws on a keffiyeh in Parliament. He has a long history of anti-Semitism. Like, I know people have worked with him on affordable housing, and then he finds out they're Jewish and they're pro-Israel, and then he ghosts them and, ends whatever projects, more important to spike the Jews and give people houses. This has been his career, and he's bringing the keffiyeh into Parliament. And Heather McPherson's getting up there saying, "I come into work every day for Palestine, not for Israel." These people will accuse any Jewish MP of having dual loyalties to Israel, and ignore the fact that Israel is an actual ally of Canada. So standing with an ally is part of Canadian civil society. And then they will say, no, I come in here and work every day for the Palestinian people, a la Rashida Tlaib in the US. And then these people have the audacity to turn around and talk about the Zionist lobby and this and that. So you have that going on. And what happened, though, is the motion, you saw the internal politics play for the Liberals. The Liberals couldn't go full on death to the Jews because they still have a significant, center left upper middle class base that, they're not some of them are Jews, and some of them are just not anti-Semites, right? They're highfalutin fancy lawyers or people, and they have a lot of Jewish friends, so they don't want to kill all the Jews, and they don't have this anti-Israel hate. They're from Canada. They were brought up in Saskatchewan or whatever, or downtown Toronto, and at the dinner table they talked about dinner or school. They didn't talk about Intifada and whose cousin died a glorious death fighting the infidels. This is not them. So they had to water this down. So what the NDP wanted was like a full unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. Under what borders and what things, governed by who, no one knows, right? That's a problem. So it was watered down to the standard Canadian position, which is we believe in a two-state solution negotiated by the Israelis and the Palestinians, right? We will support what both sides negotiate to and agree to. So they reverted back to that. So ultimately, nothing was accomplished here. But this was we vote for a ceasefire thing. Now, this is bad policy. Now it's silly because it's Canada, we can't do anything. But in general, it's bad foreign policy to make a threat that you can't enforce because it reduces your credibility. This is Obama drawing a red line in Syria and then not enforcing it. If you draw a red line, people cross that red line, you have to shoot them in foreign policy terms. They cross it, you don't shoot. Well, now you have no more red lines. Nothing you say is scary. You have to reestablish deterrence some other way. Obama never really managed to do that. And then you had a new administration come in and reestablish deterrence. This is basically saying, Canada, we're voting for a ceasefire. Okay. Well, how do we enforce a ceasefire as Canada? Are we going to go in there and fight the Israelis to stop fighting the Palestinians? Are we going to then start bombing Hamas? Like every Hamas rocket that flies into Israel, are we as Canadians now going to go in and we're going to take out those Hamas command? We're going to fight both Israel and Hamas now, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the PFLP and every other terrorist faction there. We're going to fight both sides to establish a ceasefire because that's the only way you can enforce it. Like, how are we going to enforce a ceasefire as Canada? Stop selling weapons that we've never even sold the Israelis? Like a lot of anti-Semites and people have this idea that every Western nation gives Israel all this aid and that's how Israel survives. That's not even true, right? It's America that does give military aid to Israel. But American aid to Israel is unlike every other aid it gives to every other country. It gives Egypt, it gives Egypt $1 billion a year, just here's $1 billion. The aid to Israel is conditioned that they have to use that money purchasing American weapons manufacturing. It's the same thing sort of they've done in Ukraine. Right? Oh, we're just giving money to Ukraine. Well, America isn't. They're giving money to Americans to make weapons to give to Ukraine, which benefits everyone in that scenario. Right? So we have this perception due to deranged anti-Semites mostly that Canada's just giving billions of dollars in aid to Israel. And no, we're not giving any in aid to Israel. We never have. We give aid to the Palestinians. We give our taxpayer dollars to Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. This pay for slave program where the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, gives a salary to the families of people who commit terrorist attacks, says he wants to give it to the families of the October 7th terrorists as well. That's your tax dollars. That's Canadian taxpayer dollars. So the only Canadian taxpayer dollars flowing into the conflict is to Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. So if you're going to talk about soft political power, we're going to withdraw financial aid to, like, the only people we actually have some sense of deterrence on is actually the terrorists. We have nothing over the Israelis. We give nothing to the Israelis. We have free trade with the Israelis, which is like, oh, you make microchips, we will buy them in exchange for money, and we have corn, you can give us money and we'll give you corn. Like, that's standard stuff. It's not like we're just giving billions to Israel. Like, Israel's a functioning country. It has a thriving tech sector and its own economy, and now it found some natural gas reserves. Like, Israel can exist as a functioning country. It doesn't need like Canadian aid to survive. And we have this construction that the NDP have in their head that even though they're in government and they should be able to review the budget and realize we're not giving any money to Israel, they're pretending though that we're giving trillions and quadrillions of money to Israel every day. Every day we're just sending a bajillion dollars to Israel, and they're going to stop it. In reality, we're giving $0 to Israel, and they've managed to stop the flow of $0. And they've changed before the NDP motion, we were giving $0 to Israel, and now the NDP succeeded, and we're giving $0 to Israel. Hallelujah. This is what has been accomplished. So it has been a victory in the minds of deranged anti-Semites who have a misconstrued version of reality. But the problem is that's most of the people in the streets, and they just got encouraged. They didn't get exactly what they wanted. I mean, most of the people on the streets want Canada to bomb Tel Aviv. Like that's what they want. They want nothing short of, we want Canada to just carpet bomb Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Haifa and everywhere else in Israel till they're all dead. That's what they want. Until we get that, we're going to be unhappy. But they just got encouraged because they're saying, oh, the parliament is now playing along with this nonsense. So you're going to see more radicals in the streets. They learn that harassing synagogues works. They learn that harassing, shutting down things. So you're going to see them more violent. You're going to see them more intrusive into public life. You're going to see them more disruptive. And Canadians are going to get more upset, and hopefully they do something about it. But we're at that dangerous point where Canadians might feel that the government's not going to help them, the police are not going to help them, no one's going to enforce the law, and you bring that danger thing where eventually the civilians go, okay, we're going to enforce some law. Like, it's either us or them. Like, we have to take our safety in our own hands. The only real hope that Canada has to delay that is enough people feel that this will get better when we elect Pierre Poilievre in a year and a half. You kind of have to hope that that mentality wins out, that people are just willing to bear this for another year and a half. But you never know. You abuse people long enough and someone's going to snap.
What is NDP getting out of it? What is Heather McPherson and what's her role in it? And what's a bit of background of her role in playing in Israel Hamas? Because we've seen her also supporting the Khalistanis as well.
So I think there's two elements of this, and I think you hit on it perfectly, linking this to the Khalistani movement, which is really important. We'll get back to. One is I do genuinely believe that Heather McPherson is an ideologue on this, and there are a lot of far left ideologues in the NDP. And the far left ideologues have a long history of getting into bed with bad actors and crazies. So, why are the Khalistanis and the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist factions, Islamists, so supported by the radical left? The Khalistanis want a theocratic state in Punjab where everyone is equal except the Sikhs, because they're the only ones who are allowed to hold public office, even though there's like more Muslims and Sikhs in the Punjab now, and more Hindus and so you would have a Sikh minority, which would be like the third biggest population, and they would have a complete theocracy. And this is what the radical left is supposed to be against, but they're all in support of this. And then you have theocratic lunatics like Hamas and ISIS and whatever, and the left make excuses for them. And no, it's colonialism, imperialism, and all this. There's a part of radical leftists who truly believe in utopia, like they're utopians. And the way you bring apart utopia is by instituting the perfect system. They're social constructionists. The radical leftists are social constructionists. So there's enough people in the NDP where you can kind of say, oh, they're true believers in the cause. They truly believe in sort of this neo-Marxist worldview where there is oppressor and oppressed. And because the Israelis have more money than the Palestinians, therefore they are oppressing the Palestinians. Never mind the Palestinians inside Israel do better economically than they do outside of Israel. They do best in Israel. They do the second best in the Palestinian territories with some Israeli governance. The more Israeli governance, the better. And then they do even worse in the Arab states around them. Right? This short circuits the brain, but again, we don't work on any standard logic and facts. This is neo-Marxist, like, okay, because the Jews have more money than the Arabs, therefore they are oppressing and they are being oppressed. And we need to apply this worldview to literally everything. We take the American 1960s to 1980s views on race, and we apply that to every single conflict across the globe, whether it's in East Africa, whether it's in Israel, Palestine, whether it's in Australia, and of course here in Canada. This is the worldview. We take white, black from 20th century America, and we apply it to everyone worldwide. So you have a lot of that going on. I think that drives a lot of Heather McPherson and Matthew Green. Is they are radical leftists, and they are against the concept of the Western civilization. They want some sort of socialist thing. And I've always, my new thing now is a lot of people have said, anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And often anti-Zionists will, use 13th century blood libels against Jews as like their fundamental thing. But I now say, and I believe, anti-Zionism is the weaponization of anti-Semitism to destroy Western civilization or the Westphalian nation state, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of these radical leftists truly believe in undermining the concept of nationalism, right? We need international governance. All governments are colonialists, right? So we use this attack on Israel and Zionism and destroying the concept of Jews should have the right to self-determination, their indigenous homeland. We use that to destroy the concept of the nation state in general, and then apply it to Canada, America, Australia, whatever, and you see that. And they use this rhetoric because it's very productive to help fawn radical socialist behavior. So there's some self-interest there to the radical leftists, and shared goals with these people. And then the other thing is the NDP, they attract lots of different types of crazies because, as you said, Khalistanis, Islamists, they use the radical left quite easily because they're easy to fool. They just say, well, everything's racism and we're against the white man or whatever, right? And then Jagmeet Singh is philosophically a Khalistani. More than, yes, he is a bit of a socialist ding-dong, and, he he thinks he can lower prices by fighting with Loblaws. Like his view on the world is skewed. But who does Jagmeet Singh hate more, India or Loblaws? I do think India. I do think he hates India more than he hates Loblaws. And I do think he does hate both, but I think his true allegiance is he's a Khalistani who also, okay, on his side job is hating Loblaws. Like he has to market himself as a socialist here in Canada instead of just an outright terrorist supporter, which is, how the Indian government sees him. So you have a confluence of all these different factors where you have this NDP, which has been the radical left party, which has attracted a lot of these different types of crazies, and the different types of crazies stick together. You see this in interfaith. The Khalistani organizations are always hand in hand with the Muslim Brotherhood organizations in the West. Always. It's the most perfect marriage. You can see they both have similar extremist philosophies, but because they're both religious extremists, in some way, you have the sort of synergy where they can go, I'm not a radical Islamist who only look at my friend here, he's in a turban. Right? See, we're friends, interfaith. And then you can have the Calistanis go, we're not radical theocrats. Look at my friend here. He's Muslim. I'm not Islamophobic. I'm the most tolerant. And then they come into the interfaith things together and they fool people with this sort of friendship thing. And you always see the synergy between Calistani radicals and Islamist radicals, especially in the West. So those type of factors create the NDP. And of course, there's a motion coming from the NDP. And I think you see the liberals understanding that, yes, our brand is you're pro-Israel, but and I've been saying this for years, the next liberal leadership race post-Trudeau, the post-Trudeau liberal leadership race will be defined by a wave of anti-Semitism. It will be the Corbynization of the party. There will be everyone thinks, oh, it's going to be Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland. No, it's going to be the guy who screams the loudest about the Jews. That's who's going to come out, and maybe the party will finagle something. I mean, democracy internally in the parties in Canada is a bit wonky, but that person will be the winner. Will the party then appoint Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney? Maybe. But you're going to see the next liberal leadership race will be defined by a dark horse candidate who comes in screaming about Israel.
Do you see a relation between the Khalistanis' public circus that they do harassing the Indian diplomats and the protest that happens on the Jews' organization synagogue? Do you see a role of the police enforcement, everybody just trying to be on one side?
Well, yeah, I absolutely see similarities. Now, I mean, the anti-Semitic, you could say the Palestinian stuff came first because it's been around for, I mean, my entire life, right? We've had Al-Quds Day every year since the Islamic Republic of Iran came up with it. We had marches in Toronto a couple years ago where high school kids are giggling and yelling, "The Jews are our dogs." We've had that, but the other thing is the Khalistani specific harassment of Hindu places of worship and Hindu institutions that did start, that really heated up this summer going into, again, September when the liberals then jumped on the Hardeep Singh Nijjar bandwagon. And we saw real intolerable religious discrimination from the Khalistanis against Hindus. And that definitely sent a message to the rest of the radicals in Canada. The liberals sent a message that, hey, we're not going to tamp down on the radicals who have some influence in our party, right? How many Khalistanis made it into Trudeau's cabinet over the years? And you saw that, yeah, they were brandishing weapons and intimidating Hindus. If you think that the Islamists didn't see that and go, okay, the Islamists might have started it on Palestine, but from the month before leading up to October 7th, the Khalistanis really, I think, took at least another step and a half further in the terms of just outright deplorable behavior on the streets. And it was met with shrugs from the Canadian public and law enforcement and tacit endorsement from the Liberal Party and enthusiasm from Jagmeet Singh and friends that I absolutely think that because again, a lot of this protest circuit is in bed with each other. Like, you see a lot of radical leftist communists in the Palestine thing, and a lot of them also get in on the Khalistani thing. I've talked to some university students, and they're all sort of sympathetic to the Khalistani cause because it's now being pushed in universities as just another sort of Kashmir, Palestine, Khalistani left-wing cause because radicals have given enough money to the universities to push this, and the liberal professors are weak enough that if you just give them again this narrative where we take the Punjab region and pretend it's 19th 20th century America and there's black people and there's white people here, and we say, oh, the Khalistanis, they're black and India is white. Oh well, we need a Khalistan. And you're starting to see that manifest too. So I got to imagine there's a lot of crossover between the career professional protesters who have attended, communist rallies, Khalistani rallies, and the Palestine rallies, and they see what they can get away with, and they know to push the envelope.
We know how the House of Commons right now is. There's NDP and there's Liberals coming together. So what is the role of the Liberals?
Yeah, so Justin Trudeau, you got to remember, like he comes from like his brother Alexandre Trudeau used to work for Press TV, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran's English language propaganda channel. It was banned in the UK because they were caught airing the forced confessions of tortured political prisoners on air. So you'd have guys who would be like gaunt looking with bruises on their face, being like, I'm sorry, I blasphemed against the regime. The West is evil. And they'd be broadcasting this. Like, that's right. So this is where Alexandre Trudeau, who's now an advisor to Justin Trudeau, used to work. We know the Islamic Republic of Iran funds Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas and Hezbollah. So is there a part of Trudeau that, you break down Trudeau's ideology? Who does he have more love for? The ally of Canada, Israel, and the Jewish people? Or does he have more of an alliance to terrorist organizations? And I think his heart leans more towards terrorism. And I think you've seen this in everything he said, right? ISIS fighters can be a powerful voice for de-radicalization. He believes this. He believes that terrorism is created by conservative, right of center people in the West. Stephen Harper is mean. George Bush is mean. They are Islamophobic and they are racist. The racism then leads to terrorism, which is a natural reaction to colonialism and racism. I, being a good person and not racist, will give them a hug, and that will de-radicalize them and make it all better. The Obama Cairo speech circa 2009. It hasn't worked, isn't true, doesn't track, but like many things, isn't criticized and shamed. So there's no real pushback from our society on this mentality. You can get away with it. You have the media in your pocket, so you can continue to believe this because Justin Trudeau doesn't suffer the consequences of his actions. The Canadian people do. So what do the Liberals get out of this? They water it down so nothing really happens. So they kind of stave off the fury of the general Jewish community indefinitely. But they do vote yes to an anti-Israel motion, which they know, again, it's simple math, electoral math. In Canada now, primarily due to liberal immigration policies and mass migration in the last few years, there are now far more anti-Semites in Canada than there are Jews. And everyone gets one vote. So many non-Jews who even are pro-Israel probably aren't going to purely vote or throw their vote away on Israel. Like there are a few people, I can name like Donna Holbrook from, Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. Like, okay, these people, but they weren't voting liberal to begin with. In the terms of people who will throw away, if you engage in anti-Semitism, the amount of people who say, I will never vote for you again, is less than the amount of people say they're engaging in active anti-Semitism, I will vote for them because they are anti-Semitic. And that's the type of country we are now, where we have more people. If you get up and you say like the Jews are filth, they need to be exiled, yada yada yada, bloodthirsty, blood-sucking, greedy, blah 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 blah. You do a different party, you gain more votes than you lose. And so the Liberals can't go fully full-throated and go full-on like Muslim Brotherhood, sermon, apes and pigs type thing. But they can give a tacit endorsement to these people. They can wink and nod at the anti-Semites. They can throw little hints here and there that, okay, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. And do this whole song and dance and soft pedal anti-Semitism, and this can win them votes. So I think they know they're going down in 2025. They're not going to win. And I see this as an investment in the future to go into the anti-Semitic communities that they've created and say, listen, we voted to tell Israel it's bad, right? After Israel was attacked by Hamas, we blamed Israel, guys. All right, just like you, we blame Israel every time there's a terrorist attack, just like you do. Vote for us. And there's money coming from anti-Semites, there's votes coming from anti-Semites, and that's driving policy. And it's one of those things that a lot of people are too afraid to talk about, because if you mention, oh, mass migration might have problems, it's a scary thing to say, and everyone is afraid of being called racist. But the reality is, you import people from countries who over 90% of them hate Jews. Over 90% of those people will hate Jews. And if you have no focus on integrating them, they're not going to integrate. And if you bring them in large amount of numbers to all in the same areas, they're going to get balkanization of society.
My last question for the day, or maybe the last conversation for the day, would be, you can tell our audience what the online hate speech bill is and the role of Arif Virani, who's the Attorney General of Canada, who was basically the spearheaded guy who spearheaded this online hate speech bill.
So the online hate bill, which is Bill 63, C-63. It's in first reading, but we're talking about we've mentioned, and everyone sees, there's Khalistanis roaming the streets with weapons, threatening Hindu temples. There's Islamists outside synagogues harassing them. People are burning down churches en masse. So of course, the real problem is mean comments online. This is where we're at, where the liberals, and you could say it's sort of a cynical, oh, there's lots of hate out there in Canada. We're do something about this hate. We're going to have an online hate bill where mean comments online will be our priority. And to my view, if someone who is not white burns down a church and you criticize the person who burned down a church, you're far more likely to go to jail in Canada than the person who burns down the church. This is sort of the online hate bill, in my view. It is designed by liberals. The real question is, who determines what is hate? Who determines it? You all think it's you. Everyone thinks that they can define hate, but most people, most judges now in Canada, especially the human rights tribunals, are at best center-left echo chambers. At best, most of them are. You throw a few radical leftists in there, and then they become radical left-wing institutions, right? You saw them attack Jordan Peterson from the college. Those are another bunch of bureaucrats, right? You've seen this type of mentality where basically in Canada, the law is whatever the judge feels like at the time. So whatever the judge feels like is hateful will be enforced. And the judges are human. And the judges are often not stupid. They might be silly, but they're not stupid. They know if there's an imam who says, puts out a video, the Jews are apes and pigs, they are filth, though we must fight them to the end of days, and even the rocks and trees will say, there's a Jew behind me, come kill him. And then a Jewish man says, this is a radical Islamist, this needs to go, this guy needs to be deported, he should leave our country. The odds are that guy, because he's hate speeching online, is more likely to face the consequences of something than the radical imam who's actively preaching genocide against Jews. And this is what people's fears are. And there's talks that they can go through your group chats to see if you posted any offensive memes. I mean, it's BS insane. It's insanity. It's more government control. It's more censorship of the internet, and it's done by the same people who have given us all these other disastrous, the Bill C-11, C-18, the internet stuff. We don't have news on Facebook and Instagram, and we're about to lose it on Google. These same people are creating the online hate speech bill. So if you think the bill's going to do what you think it's going to do and fight the hate you think it's going to fight, you're a fool. Unless you are, a radical leftist inside the Liberal Party, then yes, if your mom is a Liberal MP and your dad is a Liberal donor who's a judge, yeah, the bill's going to do exactly what you want it to do. But for everyone else, it's likely going to protect the radicals from the people criticizing them. And that's what I think the vast majority of people are feeling. And we'll have to see how it looks after different readings and it's that. But the Senate is useless. And the only real hope we have of stopping this bill is election time comes up and they just don't have enough time to get it through. That's the great thing is, like, can the conservatives filibuster this thing long enough to get it to the election is the real question behind this.
What are some of the challenges the conservatives would have to face if they get elected to rule the House of Commons?
So I think if they win a sizable majority, they'll have that. I mean, the problem is the Senate. The Senate is useless and stacked with pie in the sky bureaucrats, people who know nothing about Canadian society, have no connection to what's going on in the modern culture, or live hyper insulated lives inside wealthy neighborhoods in Ottawa, have no real interest in, the effects of mass migration in Brampton or somewhere like that, or, oh, there's crazy people outside temples. Oh, that sounds bad, but I'm old and I don't know how to use Twitter, so it doesn't exist to me. It didn't end up on the CBC, and it wasn't a CBC segment that I was personally invited to be on, so it doesn't exist. That's a big obstacle, and sort of undoing all this stuff the Liberals have to do. The Conservatives both have to govern and provide a new pathway forward, but they also have to dismantle a lot of the radical leftist nonsense. Bill C-18, Bill C-11, Bill C-16, Bill C-4, like all this radical liberal stuff. They have a lot of um, people expect a lot of them in a short amount of time, and governance takes a while. Pierre will have to balance both doing things and like getting the economy back on track, lowering taxes, making good on this, making Canada a safe place to invest, axing the carbon tax, all that type of stuff. And then he's also going to have to, do some of the cultural stuff. He promised to defund CBC. He's going to have to withdraw the government money from the media, which is going to create another problem for him. The media is going to go hard at Polyev. He's going to be super Trump times a billion on steroids, but worse, right? Because they're all now connected to government money, and he's promised to cut the trough off. So Polyev will have to, say either go full out with that, or he'll have to make some concessions with the media and maybe leave them a bit of a lifeline to calm them down. But then he'll have to face his base who won't like that. He's to a lot of conservatives, he promised to take this money away and destroy the media that hates them, or not even destroy them, but just take them off life support. Let them pass or fail on their own accord is what he promised. So he has a lot to do. He has a lot to do. He's promised a lot. He has a big plate. I mean, there's going to be, at that point, 10 years of Justin Trudeau to undo. So can he do that? We will see. And will he be able to do enough to satiate people and win their second vote is what his biggest obstacle is.